Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing on the topics principles, characteristics, aims and tasks of sports training. We will first start with a general introduction about sports training. The word training has been a part of human language since the archaic period, and it means preparation for some task. Our main task here is fitness and conditioning for sports and games. Hence, sports training is a process of sports perfection, directed by scientific and pedagogic principles and aims at leading a sports person to high and top level sports performance in a sport or an event by means of planned and systematic improvement of performance capacity and readiness of performance. It is a conscious human activities. Next, we'll be discussing on the principles of sports training. Principles, as we know, are the guiding factors for proper development and effective implementation of sports training. They serve as directives for the coaches, physical educators, and sports person, and they adhere to these principles so as to have optimal benefit from the time and effort spent in training. The following principles of sports training should be kept in mind. The first principle is the principle of continuity or uninterrupted training. This principle states that the training should be continuous, that is, it continues from week to week, month to month, and from year to year. Uninterrupted training does not guarantee attainment of high performance goals and thus leads to a decline in the performance capacity. Thus, measured and calculated breaks in training are administered to ensure proper recovery, but long breaks interfere with the performance and leads to decline of performance. The second principle is the principle of steadily increasing the load. According to this principle, the training load should be gradually increased in order to improve performance. The performance capacity of a sports person gets enhanced as a result of the adaptation to the given training load. In order to keep this process of increase in performance continuous, the training loads need to be increased as soon as the process of adaptation is complete. Repeating the same load for a very long time causes the load to lose its effectiveness. Next is the principle of individual load. According to this principle, every individual is different due to the differences among them. Each sportsperson's response to a given exercise will definitely vary. Thus, the program needs to be formulated keeping certain individualistic characters in mind, namely the biological and chronological age, the training state of the sportsperson, talent, psychological factors like intelligence, temperament, social and economic factors, total load-taking capacity, and the pace of recovery. Strict adherence to this principle ensures maximum benefit to a sportsperson. The next principle is the interval principle. This principle emphasizes that for the training load to be effective, each phase of load shall be followed by a measured period of recovery. Maximum adaptation occurs only when there is a proper proportion between the phases of load and recovery. If the phases of load and recovery are longer or shorter than what is actually needed in proportion to the load administered, then it makes the training ineffective. The next principle in the principles of sports training is the principle of active participation. According to this principle, the sportsperson shall also be an active participant of the planning group and has been entrusted with the responsibility of formulation of the training program. It is believed that the sportsperson will be more sincere and meticulous in completing the training schedule in each training unit when he himself has actively participated in the planning process. The next principle is the use of critical loads. In order to prepare the sportsperson to meet the unforeseen higher demands of competition, The training process shall include the administration of critical loads, that is, loads which are higher than the loads normally administered, 4 to 5 times in the whole year. In order to ensure proper recovery, the principle of proper proportion between load and recovery shall be kept in mind. The next principle in the principles of sports training is the principle of general and specific preparation. For the improvement of performance, both general and specific preparations are equally significant. General preparation serves as the base for specific preparation. As a matter of fact, the performance will be better if the base is better. General preparation should always precede the specific preparation. The next principle is the principle of clarity. To enable a sports person to have optimal benefit from sports training program, information about the techniques, the tactics and other aspects of the program shall be clearly given. The training programs will lose effectiveness if the instructions are vague. The next principle is the principle of cyclic process of training. In accordance with the time available, training cycles of shorter or longer durations are to be formulated in a way that it results in higher performance. The 3 most popular cycles of training are macrocycle, which consists of a time period of 3 to 12 months, mesocycles, which consists of a time period of 3 to 6 weeks, and microcycle, which consists of a time period of 3 to 10 days. In macrocycle, the last mesocycle, in mesocycles, the last microcycle, and in microcycle, the last session of training is formulated to guarantee recovery and relaxation. The next principle is the principle of ensuring results. The sports training programs shall be so formulated that the attainment of training tasks is ensured. After spending time and effort, if the sports person fails to attain performance, he might start losing contact with the training program and also lose confidence in the coach. The next topic is the characteristics of sports training. The characteristics of a sports training also describes the nature of the training process. Following are the characteristics of sports training. The first characteristic is performance oriented. Sports training aims at achieving high performance in a sports competition. It is a long-term process which is performance and competition oriented. It is just not a play or a recreational activity but a serious activity. The second characteristic is individual process. It is a well-known and established fact that no 2 individuals are alike and their abilities and capabilities vary. They may differ in chronological age, training age, the state of health, load-taking capacity, pace of recovery, and various other factors which influence training. In the view of the above, the training load is to be prescribed for each person individually. The principle is that the players of a team may train collectively as far as possible but undertake individually calculated loads as necessary. The third characteristic is a sports life corresponding to the demands of a competitive sport. The training program of a sports person shall be so designed that they learn to face the high demands of the competition. The sports person has to develop such characteristics that they adapt themselves quickly to the competitive situation and are able to perform well. The next characteristic is planned and systematic. In order to achieve high performance, sports training is done in a planned and systematic manner. The sports training is always planned in the form of shorter and longer training cycles, example, microcycle, mesocycle, and macrocycle. Systematic planned training program only can help a sports person to achieve high performance. Unsystematic, confusing, and haphazardly planned training schedules will be detrimental to the attainment of high standards of sports achievement. The next characteristic is that sports training is scientific. Sports training programs are scientific in nature and they incorporate findings of the latest researches and reject the training methods and means that get outdated. Sports training programs should mirror the latest trends and developments in the field of sports training so as to ensure the attainment of optimum performance in sports. Another characteristic of sports training is that the coach as a leader. Sports training is always assessed, planned, organized and implemented by a coach or physical education teacher or some other responsible person. He bears the overall responsibility for the effectiveness and success of training. He takes the help of the sports scientists in order to improve the performance of the sports person. He is involved in the planning, implementation and assessment of the training. The coach is also responsible to guide and help the sports person in achieving high performance. Next characteristics is controlled daily routine. Sports training is not just meant for fun and recreation. It is hard and exacting. In order to do training regularly with best effects, the sports person has to adjust his daily activities. As a result, the sports persons control their day-to-day routine in such a manner that they are able to train themselves once or twice a day with high effect. Another characteristic of sports training is that sports training calls for high degree of self-reliance on the part of the sports person. The sports training programs are designed in such a way that each sports person develops self-confidence and starts relying on oneself rather than on spoon-feeding by the coach. The coach acts as a leader who guides and assists the sports person in achieving high performance. Next characteristic is it is an educational process. Sports training is an educational and pedagogical process as through sports participation in systematically planned sports training programs, the sports person ultimately develops an all-round personality and thus becomes capable of attaining high performance. The next topic under the same head is the aim and tasks of sports training. The aim of sports training is to prepare a sports person physically, physiologically and psychologically for a possible highest performance at the time of the main competition in a specific sport. To ensure this, the following 5 tasks are to be achieved. The first task is the development of sports personality. The personality of a sports person differs from a common human being. The personality of a sports person develops through high demands of training and competition on physical, social, psychological and intellectual aspects, which are worthwhile to develop the required characteristics in him. In other words, if performance improvement is to be guaranteed, the total personality of a sports person has to be improved. The second preparation is physical preparation. The complete physical preparation of a sports person is ensured as a result of the development of essential motor qualities, namely strength, endurance, speed, flexibility, and coordinative abilities. In order to achieve the aim of sports training, the tasks of the development of motor qualities is a prerequisite. They have to be developed to the optimal level by means of various general, specific and competitive exercise schedules which are specific to a given sport. The third task is technical preparation. On completion of physical preparation, the focus then shifts to technical preparation, which bears direct relation to sports performance. To attain optimum performance, the sports person has to be technically sound. That is, he should be able to execute the motor movements or actions effectively even during the pressure of the competition. More importantly, mastery over the technical skills lead to economy of movement. The fourth task is tactical preparation. Tactics means the intelligent and creative use of technical knowledge within the boundaries of the rules and regulations of the competition to achieve high performance. Hence, this task starts after the sportsperson has gained technical knowledge. The role of tactics is more dominant in team games than in individual sports. The quantum of technical knowledge increases as the performance of the sportsperson improves. The last task is the psychological or mental preparation. It is a wrong belief that optimum performance can be achieved by mere perfection of the physical, technical, and tactical aspects of sports. Another important aspect that needs to be considered is the psychological preparation of the sportsperson, which has a dominant effect on the performance. Optimum sports performance is psychomotor in nature, and hence its improvement through training as well as to achieve it in a competition, the sportsperson depends on both his external and internal potentialities. The psychological elements, namely motivation, stress, anxiety, peer pressure, and many other such factors, need to be considered and controlled so as to achieve the aim of sports training. Lastly, we can conclude the topic by saying that sports training is a specialized process of the all-round physical development of a sportsperson by means of various means and methods scientifically and systematically designed by the coach in the light of aims and tasks of training. All the sessions are designed keeping in mind the guiding principles discussed earlier so as to ensure results and fulfill all the characteristics. In other words, sports training is the educational and pedagogical process. Thus, a clear understanding of all the aspects of sports training guarantees the success of the sportsperson to achieve high performance. It is really important to have a clear understanding of the in and out of sports training.